Welcome back to New Day. We're going to bring you the latest in the search for Flight 370, but right now we want to turn you to a New York Times best-selling author. His name is Christopher Kennedy Lawford. He is the nephew of President John F. Kennedy and son of Patricia Kennedy, who is a recovering addict herself, himself. But more than that, he is someone who understands a situation that is just spreading throughout the country and families everywhere. He's been studying addiction and understanding what it can do to you for 25 years, and he's taking a new look at it in his book, What Addicts Know, 10 lessons from recovery to benefit everyone. And Chris joins us now. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
The timing, very good with this. Society is dealing with addiction more and more all the time. We want to talk about the book, but let's put it in the context of the news. Whether it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, the actor, or we see addiction playing out a role in a mass shooting or in some type of violence, people immediately go to the idea that addiction is a choice. And when drugs are involved, you did this, just stop, and the problem goes away. How do you get past that idea towards what addiction really is?
Well, we have brain science now. I mean, the great thing is the new neuroscience shows us this is a disease centered in the brain. There's a genetic component to it. There is an element of people, I do believe in personal responsibility. I believe when people know they have this illness, they're responsible to get it treated. We have good treatment now. One of the things that's coming up, obviously, is legalization, and I get a lot of questions on that. Do we want a society that still begins to perpetuate this kind of behavior in terms of legalization, because it's going to increase prevalence, and we know the two most dangerous drugs on the planet are alcohol and tobacco. Do we need another legal drug? I say no.
So you're saying legalizing marijuana for personal use is a mistake?
I think it's a mistake, and I think it's a mistake for a number of reasons. One, we don't need another legal drug. Two, what it's going to do to our young people. And as a matter of policy, I don't care what people do in their private lives, as long as the rest of us don't have to pay for it. But as a matter of policy, it's not good policy. I think down the road, everybody's talking about the millions of dollars Colorado's making now in tax revenue. I think it's going to cost money down the road.
I also think that it's interesting to see how we still stigmatize drug use, whether it's marijuana, coke, heroin, those kinds of things, meth. But we know that in this country, there's a real increase in the rise of prescription drug abuse.
Absolutely.
And that is a concern because it's kind of invisible in a way, and people turn the other cheek a lot of the time.
Well, Chris mentioned Phil Hoffman, who was a friend of mine. I mean, this was his story, basically. I mean, this is a guy who was sober 25 years, clean and sober 25 years, went and got prescription drugs, Oxycontin, became re-addicted to them. A doctor gave it to him. When he couldn't get them, he went back to the street. Heroin today is very, very, very powerful, and he overdosed. This prescription drugs, you know, it is a major problem in the city because it's in this country because it's under the radar. Yeah. And people think it's legitimate. I think that you mentioned, Michaela, the most important thing, and the reason I did this book is stigma. People don't understand addicts have a lot to give the world. They're not just people who are only good for getting and staying sober, although that's a good thing. They have a lot of wisdom, and the world could use it.
You were talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman, the 20 years he was clean. To me, that was the most remarkable and tragic part of this just completely awful story. What are your tips to someone out there, then, who has been clean for so long? Can you ever let your guard down?
Yeah. Well, you can. The problem is the alcohol, the drugs, the behavior is really a symptom of a more fundamental disease, underlying causes and conditions. You know, addicts feel things greatly. They really, and those are the things that need to be addressed. People do, after a time, begin to think they've got it licked, and this is something that requires constant vigilance.
You know, it's interesting you say that, and I think it's a really great book. I mean, you break down these 10 lessons. It's easy to read. They're things that apply to you whether or not you have addictive problems or not, and it's also so instructive for families and people who have to deal with addicts, and that circle is getting bigger all the time.
That's right.
Almost everybody has someone they love or someone they know who's struggling. But you just made the key, and you know we've done a lot of work on recovery over the years. You deal with the drugs, you deal with the alcohol, which is, of course, a drug as well. That's only the beginning of the problem. And that's why so many people stay in, is they don't want to deal with the problems underneath. Do you think we have enough sensitivity there yet in the non-addict community to it's still just treating something bigger?
That's what this book is about. This book is for families. This book is for people that don't understand this illness, so they get a sense of it. And I think as a society, we're getting there. I mean, we've come a long way since I've been doing this. I've been doing this 10 years as an advocate. I've seen serious progress in people's understanding, people's you know, being willing to talk about this, and I think it's gonna bode well for this as an issue.
Keep up the great work.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing it.
Thank you.
It's important
It
work. It
really
becomes
is.
more important all the time, sadly.
Absolutely.
Chris, great to have you on the
Thanks,
show.
Chris. Good.
Right.